Hi, thanks for stopping by. In this episode, I had the opportunity to speak with Jay. We had a lot of fun recording this episode. Unfortunately, when I was editing the video, I noticed that I didn't use Jay's preferred pronouns of they/them. So I reached out to them to apologize and to see if they'd still be okay with releasing this episode. Fortunately enough, they were okay with me releasing the episode with this added disclaimer. So thank you so much, Jay. It was really fun. I know it's taken a long time for me to release this, but I hope you do great in everything that you do. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Bye. Welcome to the 18th episode of the Gabriel Podcast. Today, my guest is Jay. She is a person that kind of I did not know in college. I did not know of her existence until maybe 3 months ago. I would say around that time frame. One of my friends, Lovely, had messaged me saying, she had a friend that was doing this kind of like survey question interview thing, and if I was interested in participating, and I said, sure, why not? And I went on Jay's kind of program, like kind of meeting, talking about issues in our local community. And from that, it was, I just thought she was very interesting. I never, you know, came across a person that, was conducting these kind of interviews or survey question types. And I just thought it was very fascinating. And so I just said, okay, I definitely want her uh, onto the podcast, and that's kind of where this started. But later, I found out there was quite an interesting story to that. But before that, thank you so much for coming onto the show, Jay.
Hi, Gabriel. Just real quick to introduce myself to people. Hi, my name's Jay. My pronouns are actually they, them.
Mm.
So, and then I am a community organizer, an activist, and I also do a whole bunch of other things. But, the main reason why Gabriel really hit me up was through something that I was doing through East Yards, which is a nonprofit that has one um, one section based out here in Long Beach, and they were doing some focus groups, and Gabriel was able to be a part of those focus groups, and I was hosting them. So that was really cool to be able to meet him while doing that. So yeah.
That is correct. That is exactly what happened. It started from there, and then a series of revelations came upon me about uh, Jay's connection with a couple of people that I've interviewed. And then there's a funny story to this. My previous guest, Brandon Chun, on the 13th episode of the Gabriel Podcast, um, Lovely, my other guest, had told me that to interview him. He's a great guy. Like, I want him on your podcast. It'll be great. And that's what happened. But then I also asked her about the another guest I was going to interview called Jay, not
Not me.
not her, not this
Not
Jay,
me.
another Jay, that Jay Galiza, actually from CSGOB. And I asked Lovely if that was the Jay, if she knew Jay, and she said yes. She's actually the bandmate of Brandon, except that she thought I meant this
Other
Jay.
Jay.
And so I thought, oh, that's so interesting. And then I find out through Brandon that it wasn't the Jay that I was thinking about. And then I was like, oh, that's really weird, like, because Lovely told me that. And then later I find out this Jay that I had done the interview and the focus group with was actually the bandmate, and that blew my mind.
Yes.
That absolutely blew my mind. I was like, "What?" Like, that was totally unexpected, and I just thought, "Small world, small world."
Yeah. So I'm also part of EV133 with Brandon. And actually, even with Lovely, I'm also part of Aquarius. So it's like a whole bunch of things, but um I still have have the things that make me individual, right? So yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is so funny. Yeah, it's. I mean, I love it. I love how like like just how everyone kind of knows each other. Like with similar interests. One of them we'll talk about later. Anime. Is a common. I love
Mhm.
it. I mean, I love anime, and it's for some reason like there's just high quality people that like anime, as seen through all my episodes. Um, so
You're
yeah.
not wrong.
Oh man, so there's so much to go to. It's like go through. So we have the community organizing, organizer stuff. We got the your band, your EV133. You got your
Mhm.
uh, you got your Aquarius stuff. Like so fascinating. So so fast. Okay, what about? Okay, I'm gonna do this one with chronological order.
Okay.
How about as a kid first?
Okay.
Okay,
Let's
Jay.
start as a kid.
How are you like as a kid? Let's say a very brief description. Were you social, like, making friends like crazy, or were you more like shy and like a more reserved kind of kid, or like who was Jay?
I definitely say that as a kid, Jay was definitely someone who really was friends with everyone. And like really popped into this circle here and this circle there and like got to know everyone and their classmates and everything. But um that was and just for context, I grew up in Long Beach.
Hmm.
So I went to school here, but by the time middle school kind of came around, I not even just middle school, but I actually moved schools around a lot. So
Oh.
I went from different elementary schools to different middle schools, and then I ended up not even going to high school in Long Beach. But
Oh wow.
yeah, so yeah. And since like, when you're a kid, you don't have like social media to catch up on like all your other friends and stuff. So um some of those people I saw again once I joined college, but yeah, definitely was the more social type as a kid. I don't know if that's the same now, but I try my best.
Right. How did that affect you, kind of moving around all the time? Like, was that tough on you?
Oh yeah, definitely. It if anything, it actually made me understand why I kind of look at the world the way I do now. Like for context, I went like the first elementary school that I went to
Hmm.
was a school where like everyone was like Filipino or uh Mexican or black, right?
Uh huh.
But when I changed schools, I actually ended up I went to Bernie and then went to Longfellow after that. So then it was a whole bunch of whole bunch of different demographics there. Like there were Filipinos, but not all that many. And so I was like, whoa, I don't I don't really know if anyone can relate to me. Like I remember this one instance in like fourth grade where we're doing like a project on our family tree, and I was sharing about the Philippines, and so many of my classmates were like, what is that? And that's like seems like a no-brainer to like for us that live here in Long Beach, and there's like so many Filipinos here, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, it was just weird to hear people who apparently lived in Long Beach that didn't know what a Filipino was. I was like, "What? How do you not know we exist?"
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
Okay.
just one story that like definitely stands out in my childhood. But yeah.
Interesting. So despite all the moving, you think like still so like were you able to like make friends in those new like schools, like I guess?
Yeah, definitely. Like there there was just like a whole bunch of like I think for me, I didn't really know what else to do other than to like talk to people because that's what everyone else is like told to do. So and it's good to I actually really enjoy getting to know people too, kind of
Mhm.
like what you were saying earlier, like getting to know people because everyone's interesting and everyone has their story. So I did make a lot of friends then.
Yeah, that is so interesting. So interesting. Like, well, I'm really glad that that was the case. Like, you were able to kind of like, move around and but still kind of like, make friends like along the way. Because there are
Yeah.
some times where kids that's tough on the kids.
Yeah. Like I don't know if those kids liked me or not, but I I still thought I still thought I was being nice. I tried to be nice.
Right, right. What what was your favorite subject? What was your thoughts on school as a kid? Did you like school as a kid or?
Oh yeah, I loved school, but I think one thing that definitely stood out to me because the reason why I moved schools is actually because of like the GATE program, which is like the gifted and talented whatever program thingy
Uh
for
huh.
elementary school here. But Bernie didn't have that school or that program,
Uh
so
huh.
that's why I changed schools. But then, like, I remember going into that and then growing up, and I was like, there wasn't really much of a difference. Like, what did I learn? I I don't know. But other than that, my favorite subjects are definitely anything art related. Um, I I loved singing as a kid, so
Uh,
um, I would like want to do the school plays, and I did a lot of musicals when I was a kid. So, so yeah, I think that definitely influenced what I was into at the time.
Interesting. So okay, art. That's great. Did you what? Hmm. What was like the most difficult part? Do you think from that really early child? Was there any like difficulties that you found like as you were in that time?
Yeah, I think the difficulty from growing up from that experience
Mm-hmm.
was really like figuring out if that was like my passion or not as a kid.
Mm.
um because growing up I think art really shaped who I am, but when I got into college I in a way kind of tried to distance myself from it because of high school.
Mm.
And the reason why is that I actually ended up going to an arts high school.
Okay.
And so that really influenced that. But then going into arts high school was where really where um, my eyes kind of like saw the reality of some things, you know. And
Mm-hmm.
I guess phrasing it like that, it's more of like art sometimes is not treated just to have people express it, right? Like there's an industry for it, so people want money.
Mm-hmm.
And some art is better than other art, and some art is worse than other art, right? So it's all those different values really clashing and really determining who gets to be shown or who gets to be um, doing the thing that they love.
Right. That is interesting. What was? Huh. Okay, so then how did the whole art high school come about?
Yeah, so doing musicals a lot as a kid, I really wanted to continue doing it. Like
Uh-huh.
I remember in elementary school, my dream job was to be on Broadway. And my inspiration was Lea Salonga. and
Oh.
and like so I wanted to audition for that high school, and I got in, and it was actually an audition only high school. Um, I won't say the name of the high school for the sake of their sanity, but but um, when I got there, it I kind of like really realized very quickly that um, not everyone gets to be a Broadway star or like gets to really shine in the way that they had like been told that they could. It's
Mhm.
kind of sad.
Oh.
But like one way that it was kind of shown was like in high school, every like there was about like 40 people that are specifically for the musical theater major every
Mm-hmm.
year, and they're like handpicked. They audition, and it's it's a really tough process. And so every one of those people are like very talented people, right? But then all of them are competing for like one or two main roles every year.
Wow.
So it kind of like puts everything on a standard so much higher than a child could ever think of, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So um basically I think one experience that really showed me the reality of that kind of industry was actually like talking about what it meant to be like Filipino and to be Asian in that space.
Oh.
Because there weren't a lot of like full Filipinos actually that were going to that school. And so I was definitely like typecasted as the Asian person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't always be a good thing. Um, there was definitely one experience where I remember, not just one, but one specific experience where I remember um, some of the kids were trying to play like an improv game in one of our acting classes. So so they were like trying to basically tease me while doing that game, and they were trying to like reenact this caricature of an Asian person eating rice with chopsticks
Mm.
while I was going up for my turn. And I was just like, what?
Yeah,
Like,
that's kind of weird.
yeah, that's really weird. And that's not cool. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember saying that in front of like all of the whole class. And then even the teacher was kind of like, they didn't know what to do. They just kind of were like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, let's move on. But like nothing really happened after that. So I was like, wow, if I'm like in an industry which kind of lets people do things like that,
Mm-hmm.
I was like wondering if that industry was even right for me. Yeah.
I see. And what year do you think that happened in your? Was it 4 years?
Yeah, it was actually 6 years. So it was middle school
Oh wow.
all up to high school. But that that experience, that specific one actually happened my senior year,
Okay.
which is like, ooh, you would think people would be grown at that point.
Mm-hmm. I see. Okay, so interesting. So you go through this art high school, and then you kind of have these, your perception of so your perception of the industry kind of changes when you see these certain factors about it.
Hmm.
And so when you were choosing your college, how was that selection process like look like for you? Were there things that you considered, or what factors did you consider in that selection?
Yeah, like the main factor was that I didn't want to not be around like the place I grew up in anymore. Like basically being at that school, I felt really distant from Long Beach, but I was still really proud to be part of Long Beach. And then I was like, well, then how come I've spent like a third of my life at this school and haven't been in Long Beach for like years? So I really just decided to apply to Cal State Long Beach, and that was it.
Hmm.
And luckily I got in. And um I wouldn't have regretted it. I love Long Beach. And I met so many cool people through it, including you. So so that was really neat. Yeah.
That's cool. What did you enter or Cal State Long Beach as, and how did, like, major wise?
Mhm. Yeah, so I didn't want to do art anymore
Mm-hmm.
for college. So I actually was first interested in philosophy because I took a philosophy course, but then I looked into it a little bit more because that was high school was also around the time when I was starting to get into um, what activism meant and like understanding more about how it affects me and using that to kind of analyze the conditions that were happening to me at the time, right? Not just accepting things and letting people do those things.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I found the definition of sociology in a college book, and I was like, whoa, that sounds way more interesting and way more up my alley than philosophy.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first day of SOAR, which is like the orientation for freshmen at Cal State Long Beach, I changed my major to sociology.
Hmm. And
So yeah.
and how was that journey? I guess early on, was it as you expected, as interesting as you thought?
Yeah, I took so many different courses. I I took many classes on like race theory, gender theory, even class theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also even taking a whole bunch of math classes and statistics. So it was like a world that I didn't expect that I would be into, especially after going to an arts school. But it it made like the world around me make a lot more sense. Like, oh, this is why this certain demographic is being affected by this thing.
Mm-hmm.
So sociology as a definition is basically like the study of society, but in like a physical lens. So kind of like psychology, it's like really focusing on the brain.
Uh-huh.
Sociology is focusing more of on like the societal aspect. So really multiple people or like groups of people.
Right.
So yeah.
Fascinating. Fascinating. Okay. And then throughout that journey, through that um major, so it was just like once you found sociology, it was just like it was a done deal. Like it was just you graduated with or yeah, with sociology.
Yeah, I finished I finished college with sociology, and I'm like just still um using that actually for my community organizing experience. So um and and just to define what community organizer is, it really just means that it is someone who is trying to arouse, organize, and mobilize people to help create societal change. So um, I do that not only through my econ work, so like getting paid, but I also do that in other ways. I'm also part of an organization based in Long Beach called Anak Bayan Long Beach,
Hmm.
and I'm currently the vice chairperson of that organization. So trying to basically find people who are really interested in wanting to create social change and wanting to really change the world for the better.
Right. Okay, that's so cool. Anak Bayan, that's like a Filipino focused group.
Yes.
Okay, because I'm like that
Yes.
sounds Filipino.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
is. Anak
Tagalog.
means child, and then bayan means country. So the name is like child of the country.
Okay. And so that's focused on like you said change like societal changes, but is that like focused on Filipino
Yeah,
Filipinos? Okay.
yeah, really wanting to organize people to really care about Filipino issues, not only here in the US, but also back in the Philippines as well.
Mm, fascinating, fascinating. So how has your background in sociology like helped you personally like in that kind of in the activism world, do you think?
Yeah, it definitely helps me to really be able to put my thoughts into words sometimes,
Mhm.
or to even help me explain what I'm learning in class.
Mm.
Because I know for a lot of people's experience in school, sometimes it's just like info dump, info dump everything, and then write it down on a test, and then turn it in, and then that's it. But definitely, like in this way, it's like I'm kind of not going to forget anything I learn because I'm like really using it in my everyday life, like when talking to people, but also in trying to understand what's going on in the world. Yeah, I really find it useful. It really has opened my eyes into seeing that every action is not just individual, but can create change.
Definitely. Oh, and I forgot to appreciate when you're defining things. That's a very interesting. I love that. Like when you're
Thank you.
because yeah, that is true. Like not everyone kind of like knows. Like it's nice to have like a a proper understanding of what you're talking about. So yeah, that's super cool. That you do that.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting, interesting. So, going back a little bit into the story about when you got into Cal State Long Beach, and because you said you were, you felt like you were away from Long Beach and how you loved the Long Beach community. So, how was it like in that kind of aspect, kind of coming back in like to Long Beach and like in the community? Did you, yeah, like how was that for you?
Yeah. I felt like an adult in doing that because I felt like that was like one decision I really made for myself that wasn't based off of what other people expected me to do. Like, going to an art school, people would expect me to apply for like a theater major somewhere in New York or something, right?
Mhm.
But I really was like, no, I'm not going to do that. I really did it for myself. And I think that was one decision that I could never regret. And so, really integrating back into Long Beach, I was able to really meet new people. I joined a lot of clubs when I first joined college. So, um, I joined PAC, which is the Filipino American Coalition, and
Mhm.
I met a lot of people through that. I I joined Idol Research Club, which was the club that Marvin was helping run at the time. And then um, met a whole bunch of people. And then, yeah, I feel like I've met a lot of my friends because I decided to stay in Long Beach. And I, that could, like, I could have chosen a different path and that would have been something different. But I'm really glad I met who I met in Long Beach. Yeah.
Right. That's fascinating. Um, I love that because like, at least hearing your story like about like how you very much like very social and like really want to hear other people's story is like and so you join all these different, clubs and you meet a lot of people. When I hear that, it's like it's kind of seeing like what I like could have done but like didn't do. Right?
Oh.
Because like I was very much like kind of the opposite where I was like very like introverted, like very shy, like did
Mm,
not like want to like interact with other people really. Um and that was like me like all the way from a kid to like all the way to like through I would say through college really. And it wasn't until like after college that I was just like
mm.
I was just like really getting tired of like being by myself like because like I was like I need to be by myself to kind of recharge my battery,
Oh, I feel
social
that though.
battery. um but then at some point I was like, wait, I have too much energy like stored up, and I love interacting in like one-on-ones, and like I like interacting with people. It's just
Mhm.
like I can only do it in like in short periods of time. Otherwise like I
Mhm.
get tired. I'm like, oh, like I need a rest. Um but but yeah, and so that's why, one of the reasons I started the podcast was because it was like I do love interacting with people and I do love hearing people's stories out. And so it's been really interesting kind of seeing this kind of like at least transformation for me, because I could never have seen myself doing this kind of podcasting like in my life, like just maybe like 5 years ago it would not have been like in consideration.
Mhm.
But yeah, so hearing your story, I really is like, wow, like that does sound really nice, like like just like so I'm basically doing like all of these like connection things like retroactively with all the
Mhm.
people that I've known about but never really like interacted much with. Like with Marvin and Jonathan Beltran and Otaku Hourly.
Mhm.
Um, so it's been nice to kind of like, take on this new perspective of like, hey, let's sit down and talk and kind of thing.
Yeah. I definitely feel you on the introversion part. Like, even though I was really wanting to do a lot of these social things, I do identify as an introvert because I do need to recharge as well. But
Hmm.
I think that's also just like, in a way, also being a sociologist, uh, being kind of realistic. Like, people need to interact with people in order to feel loved and appreciated and
Hmm.
also like worth it, right? In life. So no one can really sit in true isolation, right?
Definitely, as what I've learned through personal experience.
Mhm.
So okay, so fascinating. So you went through Pack and you met a lot of people, Pack and Idol Group and stuff like that. So fascinating. So we've touched on that one. So what about let me think. So you talked about singing. So what about your current band, EV133? How did that come about?
that that really came about because of that club that Marvin helped start. Cuz we all met through that club, all of our bandmates.
Oh wow.
So we're all mutual friends with like Marvin and Lovely as well. So we really met through there, but knew that we were all musicians, right? But really didn't realize we could like do the musician thing together until after a lot of us graduated or left school. So yeah, so and then during the pandemic too, right? So yeah, that's really how that started because we were all friends already, so that was good.
Got you. Got you. Marvin, by the way, is my guest prior I had interviewed today actually for the 17th episode
Oh,
for the
that was
podcast.
earlier.
That was actually earlier today, funnily enough. Today is one of the double whammy interview days cuz yeah. But yeah, yeah, definitely just earlier today. Um yeah, so that's fascinating. Fascinating. He did not I didn't go too in depth into the idol thing with him. So I
He might have been trying to hide
Oh.
it. Sorry, Marvin, I outed you.
No. Yeah, no, like we kind of talked about it slightly, but the conversation kind of took a different turn. But I mean, it was fascinating regardless. That would have been so weird if we had flipped this interview timings around. That would have been such an interesting, uh, conversation on how that went about for him and
Uh-huh.
yeah, because I didn't know at all, like actually, that Marvin was connected to you guys in any shape or form.
Yeah.
But that's super cool that you guys met through that club.
Yeah.
But did you always play an instrument? Like, when did you play an
Oh
instrument?
no. I actually started guitar because of my bandmates.
Oh wow! So you just
Yeah.
learned on really?
Yeah, they taught me like within this last year. So I really started playing guitar actually around July of last year.
Mm-hmm.
I like began a little bit of it like in February of 2020, but it was really through the pandemic where I learned how to play guitar.
Was it because
And
like you wanted to play the guitar?
yeah.
Oh.
So, our band's first performance was just an impromptu one, and um, the song that we sang, everyone plays an instrument in the song, and so I was like, okay, I can try. I have a guitar at home. I could try to do it, and then I did, and it was, of course, really bad back then, but like that's only natural, right? Because I just started. So being able to see how I've grown as a musician and like I have calluses on my fingers now from guitar, like that's so weird. Like I wouldn't have thought that I would consider myself a guitarist before the pandemic, and now I can use that for more than just weeb stuff. Like,
That is so cool. Could kind of like just kind of pick it up and just start, playing in a relatively short. I mean, it's been only like a year, has it been?
yeah,
Wow.
about.
Yeah, it's so good. I have to admit that after my podcast with Brandon, and after he mentioned, or I got more into like EV133, I went on your guys' YouTube, and because he mentioned something like because I had listened to his song "Lost for Words," and
Mhm.
then he mentioned EV133, so I had to check you guys out. And then I listened to I have this one song. I don't know what the name of the song, but it was like, but let me think. It was
What did the video look like?
Well, it was in. I don't know. Was that Brandon's room? It looked like Brandon's room.
Oh, probably. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and it was. I want to look it up because like it was. I put that on replays so many times before I go to work
Oh my
because
god.
it's such a upbeat and like nice song to listen to. And literally like I get to my work parking lot and I'm sitting there. I make it so I have about 20 minutes to just kind of sit in my car and chill.
Mhm.
And I just listen to that song on repeat, like right before I get to work, just for that boost in
Oh my god.
yeah, it's called Given Ending.
Oh yeah, Fuyu no Hanashi.
Yes, I love this one. Like it's like you guys are great, and like
Thank you.
it was I just put that. It's my favorite song from you guys. I need to like watch more of the other ones, but I like that one so much that I just stick to that one. But
Thank you. Yeah, that was
yeah.
actually the first song we all learned together. So that was the one that we ever like the first time we performed, we played that song. So that was the one that I learned guitar
Oh
for.
wow. Yeah. That's super cool. Yeah, because I saw you, yeah, playing the guitar in the video, I believe, and I think I was, we were talking, just now about the singing thing. I was like, when did the guitar come into play? Because he didn't mention like a guitar kind of thing at all.
Yeah, I never played guitar until last year, yeah. I was just singing and acting and dancing.
Yeah, I mean, that's plenty enough already, but you add on the guitar. That is so cool. Okay. And then you guys said it was kind of impromptu. Like, how, I think Brandon did speak on it a little bit, but how was it, how did the impromptu come about?
Yeah, because I actually listened to Brandon's podcast this week when it came out,
Uh-huh.
and and so he definitely told the origin story of like how we met, just through the maid cafe and everything,
Uh-huh.
or like how we performed together. Um, but during the pandemic, he also mentioned how we decided to just sign up for a whole bunch of online events and stuff so that we could scratch that itch of wanting to like perform.
Uh-huh.
Because like right after that live performance, then the pandemic like shut everything down. So
Mm.
like Brandon was supposed to have his senior recital that semester,
Oh wow.
and I was even supposed to have like a graduation in person, right? And none of those things really happened. So it's like those those experiences that we all like took for granted before the pandemic definitely like took a toll on a lot of us. And yeah, so I really felt like I wanted to not only interact with people again, because
Mhm.
isolation is not fun.
Yeah.
But I also wanted to improve myself in something. And I was realizing like after that whole high school experience, I really didn't want to like sing or dance or act anymore, but I don't think that was really true. Like, I think I really enjoyed it, but the joy was just taken away from me because they made it like it was a job, and like it was to a standard that is so unreasonable that like not everyone can make it. But at least for me, I don't find that to be true. I think music can really be done by anyone and should be done by anyone because it really touches everyone's soul, like no matter who you are, no matter your relationship to music, and it's in our everyday lives, right? So I'm just glad that being part of EV really brought that fire back into my appreciation for art, and also really connecting it to more than just to serve some rich person's entertainment, desire, right? But really for like people to enjoy.
Right. Yeah, I exact. That's super cool that you were able to find an outlet for your like artistic um I guess talent to in the band. Um and I mean I have to say I just love like the concept of like you guys just kind of like coming together and like doing like all this like anime like cover stuff and like it's like an anime. It's like it's
We've
like
gotten that more than once.
I love that. Like you guys are great. Like I love the genuinity, the origin story that that Brandon talked about. Like you
Maybe you
know,
just need to interview the last member of the band.
you know, I am on a mission. Because shortly after that, I did add your guys' last member. I don't know how to say his name exactly.
Their name is Pigao.
Pigao. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
I recently friended Pigao on Instagram, and I still have to send the invite, but he's definitely now on my list. I have to complete the Trinity. I have to.
Yeah, I gotta get all of EV 133 up in here.
Yeah, it's so cool. Um, so how? Let me think. So how was that club that you guys kind of entered together? Like, was it like a relatively like small group? You think or
Um, it was actually not like small, but not huge. It was like
okay?
20, 15 people.
Mm.
So it was just like the mutual interest is like idol anime or like idol culture, but at least for me, like that's something that I'm really into, so that's
Uh-huh.
why I joined. But yeah, I think a lot of us really stayed because we just wanted to be friends and just hang out.
Very cool. Yeah, I that was I did not get too into the idol anime genre because um yeah, I'm not sure. Like I just never happened to come across one exactly. Um
Yeah, I should ask Lovely.
I know I've seen it. I've definitely seen it. Lovely. And there was like this whole like it kind of came like as a as a wave. I remember because like I remembered like all of a sudden like everyone was talking about like I think Love Life, was it? Is that
Yeah, Love
Love
Live.
Life? It was just like in all of Lovely, and like it kind of like came over my friend group in the discords. I'm like, oh, interesting, but I just never was like it never like got me it's like personally interested into watching the thing, but I just kind of saw it like in the periphery.
Yeah.
um and like I saw like how and then I saw like the dances that people would do with it, like how into like they would get into like the choreography,
Hmm.
and I'm like, wow, that's like super cool that people are just I just love it when like people are like passionate about something and they're not like afraid to show it.
Yeah, I love that too.
Yeah.
And that's like my favorite part about um I don't anime really, but I think in particular like Love Live because like I guess the premise of the whole thing is that it's like a whole bunch of uh friends who really come together to create something together and create like a group and a performance together and get the support of their whole town and really do everything themselves from like making their own music to sewing their own costume, making their own choreography and using the resources that they have to like represent their their town and their school. And in a way, like it kind of reminds me of like community organizing and activism in a way. Like it's such a weird little like offshoot, but it's like, people don't care about something so much unless it affects them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for like Love Live to affect that many people and to touch so many people's hearts, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I loved it. Whenever something like that kind of connects people together and kind of creates a good time like that. Um, so let me think. W- How far back does your history with like anime go, I guess?
um I definitely liked it as a kid. Like the first series that I really, really loved as a kid was Full Metal Alchemist.
I love that show.
Yeah, I read the manga like all the way through. And then after that was Bleach. I really loved Bleach.
I love Bleach.
and and then there was a point in time where like that's all I did. I just watched all of the different series that came up. I learned about K-On, which inspired like the band kind of thing.
I love K-On. K-On was one of those shows that I loved the shonen anime. So I watched
Mhm.
like Naruto, One Piece, and like Bleach. That was like my first
Right.
three, and then I watched like Full Metal, and then I watched Kataki, Hitman Reborn,
Oh
and
yes.
I love these shows. And then like so I only knew shonen like in the beginning, and
Mhm.
then I think I came across like K-On, and I was like, well, okay, this is kind of different. Like
Mhm.
it's not superhero esque, and
Yui's my superhero.
and and I was like, wait, this is like not. But then I watched it and I was like, holy crap, I love this.
Yeah, it's so cute.
I was like, this is so weird because it's like I wouldn't have thought like I would have connected so much to like to like to like to this like the journey of these like four girls, but I did. Like I was so into it. I was like, what? Like I loved it. Like I so loved it. But I couldn't back then I didn't feel like comfortable enough to like share like
Like let your friends know. Oh my god, I watched this anime with four cute ass girls. Sorry.
and exactly, and I was like, and so I never really shared that, and I really like much at all until like much later, and I was like, oh, other people really liked it too, and I was like, yeah, I really liked it too, and yeah, I loved it. Like it was just group of friends like. So that did inspire like the band, like the name you said of the band,
No, it actually inspired the logo.
the
So
logo.
I have a sticker because K-On the band in K-On is Hokago Tea Time, and they have like their logo in like a star. So here, it's like the star shape, but
Got
then
you.
133 is kind of like the HTT.
That's probably why when I saw that sticker, I was like, "Wow, that looks really like familiar for some." I was like, I was like, I was like, maybe it's just like,
It's a complete ripoff.
no, no, no. I was like, wait, like, I was like, I really like this, but I was like, my brain was like, wait, this feels like I've seen this before, but like, I'm like, but like, it has to be new because it's like 133. I was like, But where have I seen this before? But that is so funny. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, we are all nerds, and we all like K-On, so it was only natural that our band logo would be inspired by that.
So
But yeah.
that is so cool. Um, yeah. I mean, so Brandon kind of spoke a little bit about what you guys were like thinking of doing, like um, in the future with the band. Like, what are you guys currently like up to, like with the band right now?
Yeah, we have a lot of online events going on. We actually have one this weekend on Saturday, the 20th, 20, 20th, 21st.
Hmm.
But that one's going to be a live stream, and we performed a couple of songs. Probably by the time this episode is released, it'll be past that.
Yeah.
But we've performed like two new songs. So I'm sure everyone knows this song, "Into the Night" by Yao Sobi. That's
Oh,
like the TikTok famous song.
interesting. I haven't come across it.
You
Um,
might recognize the sound of
really?
it.
Okay.
But yeah.
And the
And
second one?
then the second one was from this artist named Yorushika, who's a it's a pair, and they have this song called Deep Indigo that we performed, and that was requested by another one of our friends. So that was really cool,
Hmm.
and I can't wait to share it with everyone. So yeah.
Interesting. So, can anyone kind of tune in and watch?
Yeah, there's a Twitch stream on the event is called I Matsuri with Series I. So the Twitch, let me find it really quick. I believe it should be Twitch TV/Series I underscore music.
Underscore music. Okay. I definitely
And
want to
it's
check that out.
I as in AI, like love in Japanese.
Right. So you had series, like as in like a TV series? No.
Yes,
Okay.
Series AI
Series
underscore music.
AI. Oh, okay. Interesting. I definitely want to check that out.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, because I think you guys are I'm so like I'm such a big fan of you guys. I don't like this whole like you guys like Brandon had like Brandon was a great guy, and like my conversations with you have been like amazing, and the fact that you guys can like produce music, and like it's just it's such a good vibe. Like I don't know what it is. Like you guys have such a cool like vibe that I really like and
Thank you.
yeah. Yeah, definitely want to like I said with Brandon, like I want to see what you guys do with the band. Um
Yeah, maybe you can have a full band podcast one day.
I love the prospect of that. That would be quite interesting. Um yeah. Let's make it happen one day. So fascinating. Okay, so then that's the band and that's anime. Okay, and then you don't have like a history with like Japanese or anything.
No,
Okay, okay.
I don't.
I was like, I was kind of getting like, yeah, because like the whole anime thing, like for some reason, like it just there's like a lot of Japanese involved. Because I liked anime and I took Japanese. Marvin liked anime, he took Japanese, and then like Jay liked anime, and he also took Japanese. I'm like, there's a lot
No,
of
my schools did not provide Japanese, but you know what? I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because if I did, I feel like I would be, I would have not wanted to like meet my 13-year-old self. If I knew Japanese, that would have been a problem.
that is
But
hilarious.
I also like do appreciate languages, and um one one language that I am glad that I was able to learn a little bit more is Filipino, not just from growing up, but just from doing a whole bunch of things. Like there's actually a Love Live dub in Tagalog, which is really funny and
What?
cool. I love it. It's a fan dub, so if you're interested.
That is awesome. Um, that is so funny. You know, the funny thing about Tagalog, actually, I grew up in like, well, my parents were, Filipino, and but they kind of spoke to us kind of, like a Taglish.
Yeah.
And so I was, like, I always understood it like by ear, but I could never like speaking. It was always was one of my things that I could never like really do. So I always like understood it, but like never really like tried speaking it really. Very short phrases.
Galing.
Oh, God. But it in college I actually took the Tagalog class there.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Was it with Dr. Ivy?
Yes, I believe was her name. Yes. And
Yeah, yeah.
I don't remember if I think I took it only for one semester, maybe two semesters. But yeah, that's when I finally worked on like actually, I never never in my life had I written like Tagalog at all. I was like, "Oh my god, like this is so weird." Like um but then also like practicing like speaking. And so that
Mhm.
was really when like I started learning like, grammar and like because it all kind of came like the hearing came naturally, but I never really kind of like uh use that to kind of make sentences.
Ako din, I had the same experience.
Wait, how did you know Professor Ivy? Or did
I also took the class too.
what?
Yeah.
Really?
It was before her maternity leave, but now she's not the professor at Cal State Long Beach anymore, so
Hmm. I see. Yeah, she was really cool. Like she was like very much like had the Filipino vibes of
yeah.
it's very very chill and very kind. Was her teaching style.
Mhm.
Um and yeah, everyone in that class was just that whole class. I mean, I think it's funny because I think that class was taken by a lot of Filipinos actually.
Yeah.
If I at least in my class, and yeah, it was always really interesting, like how I could understand it, but then like all the all the test stuff, I was like, oh man, like
Mhm.
vocabulary, even like I was like, man, like I'm still struggling to like think of like certain like come up with certain words for stuff. I was like, wow, I didn't know as much as I thought, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Like you don't really realize how much you don't know until you have to go out and practice the thing that you're learning in theory, right?
Hmm.
And I definitely realized that too because actually where I really honed in my Tagalog skills was actually through community organizing
Oh.
because in also in my freshman year I decided to volunteer for the Filipino Migrant Center,
Mm-hmm.
which is based in Long Beach here, and I helped volunteer for their youth program. And at the time, their youth program was integrating with high school students from Cabrillo and also from Carson High School. And a lot of the youth, especially from Carson High School, were like Filipino migrants or like people who had recently migrated while they were still like in high school.
Mm.
So a lot of them would be like speaking in Tagalog, and they wouldn't even try to speak to me in English. They just speak to me in Filipino, and I was expected to understand them. But it was good that they did that for me because then it also made me realize, oh, I know a lot more than I think I do. It's kind of like the opposite in a way.
Yeah.
And like I guess that's like the beauty of community organizing and stuff like that because you really learn from the community what their needs are and how to communicate with them and what is helpful for them. And um they teach you so much more things that you don't even realize you're going to learn. And really, Tagalog was like one of those things for me. I didn't grow up speaking it a lot, but I was grateful to be able to understand it a lot more now than back then.
Hmm. Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so now I can just make people laugh. Like I with my Tagalog. Cuz I make well, at least like the only times I really use it is like when I like want to make my parents laugh, like
Oh.
cuz I would make some sarcastic like comments, and I would purpose like I already like beginning of it I knew like my accent was like terrible. But now I just kind of like um emphasize the terrible accent just to like make just to make more fun of it, just because yeah. But yeah, that it's a good time when you know yeah. Yeah, so it's cool. Like I can say a little bit more now, and um let me think. It has it come in in the few times that I've seen like other people, it's say a couple Tagalog phrases here and there, and you impress
Mhm.
them.
Mag-practice tayo.
Mag-practice tayo. Oh, totoo yan. Yes. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, the Filipino community here in Long Beach is so strong. I worked at Long Beach Memorial Hospital
Oh, you did.
in their kitchen as in like the kitchen office kind of place, and
Mhm.
they were like all Filipino, like all Filipino ladies.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I mean the kitchen workers, I mean there was a lot of them. Like I was it's so funny that the night crew for the kitchen, um it was like a little like Filipino village. Like it was like
Yeah.
it it was like everyone was Filipino, and it's just like it really is crazy just like how many Filipinos there were. And you know um and so being like I had to be like the youngest like Filipino like in that
Mm.
coming in. It's always like it was always such an interesting experience for me, because I mean there's like a certain culture with Filipino of like just how they kind of talk and like how they kind of like interact, and so
Right. Filipinos always find each other.
yeah, yeah, and so I felt completely at home like over there. I was just like, wow, like yeah, like these are like my people, like and
Kababayan.
couple yeah, and I definitely you know I really connected with them, and like you said, like just the community is just very I mean they just take you in, like, and I really felt like a family over there, and
Mhm.
like almost as if like I was like their son kind of thing,
Yeah.
and yeah, so it was a great time working there. I worked there for 2 years, and yeah, it was a great experience. That's actually also part of why I was able to be more social, I guess. Working I put this into or I've said this a couple of times before. It was just like working just kind of like makes you have to like talk to other people, and
Yeah.
that kind of like gives you more confidence in like your own voice, like, and that's kind of where that develops. So like for me personally, so that got me to open up a little bit more, and yeah, um and it's so funny because sometimes I tell people, like my current coworkers that kind of know
Mhm.
me a little bit, you know I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm like an introvert, and like I used to like not like really like talk to people, and they're like, what, you, like, because like once I get to know you a little bit, I get to talk more, and it's like,
Right, right.
and I'm very like, I like to talk about a lot of different things, and so like, what, no way, and I'm like, yeah, yeah, like that was who I
Believe it or
was.
not.
And but yeah, I'm like so happy with the direction that I took, so that's cool.
Yeah. Work the workplace is really interesting because it's really where people kind of have to learn how to work together. And I also think that's the beauty of workers in general, right?
Yeah.
Like they just really know how to make people feel at home. They're always there for each other, down to help each other out. And Workers are precious.
Yes. So, what about a little bit on more on your community organizing stuff? What does what is I don't know much about this. So, what is the framework like? Do you is there a lot of you guys? Do you work mostly independently? And then
Mm.
how does the structure work for that?
Yeah, so at least for me, uh Anakbayan is the main organization that I'm really a part of, and we're actually a pretty large chapter of Anakbayan. There's actually multiple of those organizations across the country and even in the Philippines.
Hmm.
So um, it's really an organization really focusing on organizing youth and students, especially. But a part of that is also like just getting to know other organizations that are trying to reach similar goals. So that even includes like helping out with like even the census. I actually worked at Filipino Migrant Center for a minute, helping them with the census back in 2020. And then from there, like that experience helped me to be able to work for East Yards, which is where I did the focus group with you.
Hmm.
And then we learned about the experiences of people that lived in West Side Long Beach and how that affects their quality of life and how that is impacting the environment and how people want the environment to look like in West Side Long Beach. And then from there, I actually currently work at Long Beach Residents Empowered, which is a housing nonprofit that right now the project that we're doing is called Stay Housed LA. And that project is basically trying to educate renters on the current tenant protections that are happening under COVID-19 because a lot of people are getting evicted and leaving a lot of people without homes during the pandemic or having a hard time being able to get rent because of lack of job opportunities or being laid off from work. So it's really important for people to know that they should have a home. And uh, yeah, I think the reason why a lot of community organizers really do what they do, like it's kind of a broad term, but really it just means like trying to get people to know that they have a say in what happens to them and they can change they can change the world as long as like they come together and really um fight for what they need in life.
Definitely, definitely. So how would you say how many? You said it was a pretty big chapter of that organization. Like, how many are you guys out there kind of doing that type of work?
Yeah, so we have more than 24 chapters across the US.
Uh huh.
But Long Beach, Anakbayan Long Beach in particular, we're about 20 members now.
Hmm.
And so we're really trying to find more people who are interested in activism and community organizing in Long Beach. So
Hmm.
um, if you're Filipino and want to change the world, like come through.
Hassan, do you guys have like meet up like online or like?
Yeah. We have a Discord. Of course, the pandemic has kind of changed a lot of things, but um, we also know that like in order to get to know what people in society are like wanting, right? We have to really know what their experiences are on the ground. So we want to try to like flyer since schools are back up now.
Hmm.
Um, want to try to flyer to see what people are up to, what they're interested in, but then also to just like be in community, like do some educational discussions like out in the park or even do art days together out like also in the park or even like at the lawn of school or something like that, right? So, yeah.
Fascinating, fascinating. So I'm not sure. Let me think if when you're out there why do you think it's important uh to do the thing that you do with organizing? Like, why do you think that's important personally?
Yeah. Um, for me personally, like I definitely see it as a way to kind of not only want to make the world a better place, but also to really find justice for a lot of the bad things that so many people experience in life.
Mm-hmm.
Like listening to your podcast and like hearing some people like really talk about their life experiences and how like life can be really hard for a lot of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's sad that that's the reality in a way, that people feel like they're not heard or feel like they're not wanted or not really providing anything useful to the universe or
Mm-hmm.
and like that shouldn't be true. Like we all have value and we all have a place in in our society and in our world. So I really think that's, at least for me, that's what makes activism and uh, community organizing really important to me. And I feel like if I didn't didn't figure that out, I would probably still be trying to be on Broadway and um, like letting myself be exploited or like taken advantage of, when all I want was all I wanted, at least back then, was just to feel like I'm good at something. And everyone should have that joy, right, in life, to feel like they're good at the things that they do. And yeah.
True. Very true. Um, do you think what is your um like a long term, or do you ever think about like where um is there like I'm not too sure like of some sort of like progression system with like community organizing, but where would you like to see yourself like in terms of in that sphere? Is there like
Mm.
something like a is there anything that you're particularly like striving for in that space?
Yeah. Like I think one thing that really defines Anak Bayan is that we are really fighting for our national democracy in the Philippines. National meaning that uh, it is independent from foreign control.
Mm.
So like free from like colonization and also influence from other countries, but then also democracy where the majority of people are really trying to fight for what they want in society. So it's not just the people who are like sitting sitting in their nice little office calling the shots, but the people who are out there living life calling the shots alongside them. So
I see. Interesting. Okay. So what do they currently have at the moment?
so like I think an example of this, just some stuff that's been going on in the Philippines. Um I'm not sure if you've been able to see anything, but they've been actually having a really hard time with uh, handling COVID-19,
Mm.
and that's everywhere in the world, definitely. But there was actually a statistic that came out recently that revealed that only 3% of the nation is vaccinated,
Oh.
and that's really a stark difference compared to like here in the U.S., right?
Mm-hmm.
So really wanting to have like a competent culture where like health is really prioritized, um because they're really like putting funding instead to different I guess the word to say it is um like policing in trying to control how many activists exist in the Philippines. So they have this this um sorry, I'm trying to remember the word. They
Yeah.
have they have a task force called the NTF-LCAC, which it refers to the uh let me sorry, I like
Mhm.
forgot what it meant for a
No,
second.
you're good. Uh,
um but it refers to the National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict. But it's it's very interesting because then they're putting all of that money to go toward that, but not really helping to end COVID-19.
right. So, communist conflict thing.
Yeah.
So they that particular task force targets activism specifically.
Yeah, I think something that is significant about that, and the reason why they really are calling it that is because there's this thing in the Philippines called red tagging where they will just name someone and uh, basically assume that they identify as a communist and then use that as a reason to um, basically uh, jail them or raid their home or something like that. And um, what even like I guess it's weird because they are even like I think an example actually is here during COVID-19, a lot of people and different people did like mutual aid
Mm-hmm.
events where they donated food or clothes or something like that in order to help people who were suffering under COVID-19.
Mm-hmm.
But basically kind of like a community pantry kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
And they implemented that idea within a lot of the communities in the Philippines. So like really giving away free food, free water, free clothes, and um, this NTF-LCAC actually was surveilling different mutual aid groups that did those kind of things and were being like, oh, uh, this might be a danger to society. and and I just thought that was so weird, you know?
I agree. That wow. So interesting. So did they put a stop to that, or did they take any action on that, or?
Not as of now. It's actually still being really funded right now, the NTF LCAC, but the
Mm.
community pantries are still an ongoing thing that many many activists in the Philippines are still trying to continue. So um, I think it's good to really support those community pantries because a lot of Filipinos are having a hard time with COVID-19. Like if only 3% of the population is vaccinated, then then I would only want for for people to be able to get the health services that they need because health is a human right. So yeah.
Definitely, definitely. Hmm. So, what does a day of a community organizer kind of look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. um so for for me at least, a lot of the the stuff that I do is really centered around trying to educate people
Hmm.
and trying to have them learn about what's going on, not only in the world around us, but also in our everyday lives. So really sharing the news of what's going on in the city and having people aware of it, but then also teaching people how to analyze that because uh, we know that like one thing that we learn about news is that a lot of the times it can be biased, and when you analyze news, it's always important to be able to know who is being told by, who the story is being told by, and and hearing news that is actually the reality of the situation is always really important. So, um, going to look at like every single news topic and really teaching people how to think critically about what's going on around them
Mm-hmm.
is kind of like one step. So, I definitely do a lot of studying EDs or educational discussions, and
Mm-hmm.
also teaching them. So, um, like an example is even know your rights training. So like knowing how to interact with police if they ever question you for something that isn't or if they ever question you for whatever's going on in your everyday life, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, or even knowing your rights as a renter. If you're being evicted by a landlord, like you should know your rights and understanding how you can keep your home as long as you can, right? So, doing those kinds of educational discussions and really uh, mobilizing people to not only attend those but to find other people who also need that information. That's like kind of what community organizing is all about. It's really wanting to grow the community by reaching out to people and really finding out what they want and what they need and really providing it to them.
Fascinating. Okay. Very nice. Um, and so right now you're doing that community organizing stuff, and then you're also doing the band stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and is there like anything else that is like taking over time? Because I already like I'm just wondering because like I'm just with those two, it just seems uh like a lot already on the plate.
Yeah. It's true in a way.
Uh-huh.
But those are really what's going on in my life. And even though they seem like really separate for a lot of people, um, it's really interconnected in a way. Like I really find art and culture to really be something that really defines a generation or like a point in history, right?
Mhm.
And the stories that we tell through music or through um, art are really what's going to really tell what's going on in the world or like what's going on in our minds, right? Like there's a lot of sad quarantine songs coming out right now. So, um like I think the one thing that I really would want to do is really instill a sense of hope within a lot of the sadness and within a lot of the difficult things that go on in the world. So like that's what music is for me. It's a way for me to really share what I want to happen in society. Like I want things to change for the better. And what better way to show that through music, right?
I like that. I like that. That kind of merging of your two interests very much.
Yeah.
That's cool. That is cool. I was just thinking how you mentioned how you were the vice president of the Bayan uh
Yeah.
a chapter. Um and so there's so how how has that been like to have that kind of position? What does that kind of mean? Like what does that position entail for some?
Yeah. Like for me, it really had had me instill like a sense of leadership within myself. Like definitely before and through art school, I was really told, "Oh, you're not a leader." but but like being elected to be that position by our members was something that told me, "Oh wow, I really can do this." And I also want other people to experience that same feeling because um, I think it's also good for people to really show their sense of leadership in any way they can. And um, I'm really looking forward to someone who could like do that after me and stuff like that too. Like it just because one person is not a certain position, right, in an organization doesn't mean that they aren't doing something valuable to what change needs to happen. So, yeah, it's really taught me a lot about leadership and what it really means, and that everyone can be a leader if you really frame it in that way.
Right. What does it mean to be a leader?
Yeah. Um one one aspect from a study that we really learn in anak bayan is called araling activista, which means activist study. And one aspect of that is really talking about how a leader really listens to the people and listens to what they want. And a leader is going to be someone who really pays attention and cares for them truly, not just for the sake of their own status, right? Or for the satisfaction of another outside being, but really just to make sure that the masses of the world are being heard and are um, being cared for. So I think a leader really does that. They listen to the people and really care about them in action and in word.
Mm, fascinating. Fascinating. And hmm. Oh, very cool. Very cool. Um yeah, so it's interesting because some of the recent people that I've interviewed,
Mhm.
they're kind of been in these leadership roles. So I believe I interviewed three people that were either currently presidents of like the esports organization for their college,
Mhm.
and I kind of asked them about like what was like regarding that leadership position, because I think the reason why I really wanted to get these people onto the show was because, well, I was interested in leadership and what it you know what what it meant, because I ran my own little in high school. I ran my own little club, League of Legends club, and
Oh,
I
that's
created
nice.
it was, and but like, and it was cool, like running it, but I definitely felt that pressure of like, being kind of like the person that is kind of relied upon to kind of like make sure that the organization or like the club is like moving in the
Mhm.
direction that is most enjoyable
Right.
to the people. And 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 so I felt that, I felt that on my shoulders, and um and so I thought, well, I'll interview the people that are in these leadership positions, and then kind of listen to their stories, and what goes on in the mind of people elected into these positions to kind of keep basically keep the organization going, and like keep it in, going in the right direction. And they were all fascinating. Every single one was like, it just shows that these people did care about the uh community that they were serving, the gaming
Mhm.
community. And because they had their parts in that. They grew up in that culture and they had fun in it, and they just wanted to also like give that to the next uh to the next
Generation.
generation. Yeah. um and yeah, so it was fascinating. So I did ask some questions like, so for, I guess for you, what do you think is like the best parts of being in like a leadership role, in that kind of leadership role, I guess.
Hmm. I guess the best part is really, to me, actually seeing who's next. Cuz like as being a leader, right? Then you're really helping to grow other people into understanding their own role uh into being an influence onto the people around them, right? And so seeing them grow into really the best version of themselves, like I think what you were saying earlier, right? Like if people don't really understand who they are, then they can't really be open about themselves to other people, and they're like shy, and they and they don't really talk as much about themselves, or they don't really find their lives interesting. But when people really recognize the leadership roles within their own selves, then I really feel like that is when they blossom, right? Like another quote that is very popular, at least for a lot of the Filipino organizations out here, is bloom where you're planted. And
Mm.
it's really like letting letting the people around you really understand how much you grow as a leader, and really grounding yourself into where you are, and really spreading your influence through all walks of life.
Oh, I like that. I like that. It's interesting. They said that oh well, some of the stuff I listened to in psychology, they were saying that one of the most, pleasurable things in life, and that contributes a lot to like meaning, is like mentoring others, like mentoring,
Mm-hmm.
the next generation. And I think that's something that, you kind of hit on there when you're so interested in the who's next.
Yeah.
Because it is this kind of like you said, like, when you watch these people grow and you watch and the changes, and that they had to, that they made, so that, because you're helping carve out like who they are, like by just being like, by exuding like the leadership qualities, these people like see that, and the effect of your, personality and your, character, like rubs off on them, because like
Mm-hmm.
a part of them like notices, like sees that, and a part of them like is saying like, I like that. Like maybe they don't say it, maybe they don't always say it, but it's like they're, but a part of them like likes that, and it kind of latches onto them. And so, when they do take that step to like kind of fill in the shoes of their mentor, you know that's what they're going to remember, like the parts of which, like the, the mark that you left on them, uh you know just by being you, and like the way that you uh go about yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
so it's really cool. I think that's the really, the cool thing about leaders, is that they really do leave a part of themselves uh to the next generation.
Yeah. Like we're only going to like things are only going to get better from here. If we think about it like that, like if people really want change, then they're going to get it.
Hmm.
Like we we can look at history and see how history has changed throughout time, and it's also remembering that we are also a part of history. Like we make history what it is. Even
Hmm.
if we're like doing our everyday lives, like it's really the people and the people alone that make history.
Most definitely. The toughest part about being in that position, do you think?
Ugh, the toughest part is definitely having patience. Cuz I think definitely for like especially people that have gone through school, like they're expected to have things like done right away, right?
Uh-huh.
But I think the reality of the situation is that sometimes things don't have a specific deadline. And sometimes things need to take a lot more time than is demanded. And that can definitely be with uh, helping to teach people certain skills or like their different roles in society, right? Or like why their work matters so much, having them understand and really understand why they are a leader or things like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So having patience in that way, like having patience to making sure that, oh, someone said something that really hurt my feelings or who really hurt these people, but they don't know how much they really hurt them. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I can't just let that go by, right? Like I have to do something about that, but sometimes it takes a little more than just like telling them off to really understand the damage they might have done. Like I think an example is definitely like when you're a kid and you're like doing something dangerous, like you're walking on a really thin ledge or something, and then your parent goes, "No, stop, don't do that. You're going to get hurt." But you don't understand what that means because you've never fallen. Like, how are people going to really understand? Because then they think, oh, that means I can't try to learn something on my own. That means I have to rely on my parent to be able to teach me what's right or wrong. And um, that's not always the most helpful, right? So definitely having that patience to like let people figure things out while they do it and let them have mistakes is is a struggle.
I could definitely see that being a struggle. Yeah. Um, like you said, like sometimes people just have to sometimes the best way to learn is by doing. And by doing,
Mhm.
you make that mistakes and you learn from those mistakes hopefully. Um, yeah, but definitely if you're a leader that has a plan and certain idea of how it should look like,
Yeah.
that could definitely, throw you off, but yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, definitely very important
Mhm.
when it comes to being a leader, I guess.
Yeah, cuz it's even like cuts yourself some slack, right? Being a leader. Like it makes you understand like just because they didn't get it this first time doesn't mean you did a bad job, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. You know, um yeah. Yeah, because there's, like with a lot of things in life, there's only so much that you can control.
Mhm.
Um you know, I take that perspective of like, yeah, like there's barely, I the most I can like try to hope for is to try to like control myself and my
Mhm.
reactions to the world. Everyone else, it's kind of just like, yeah, I have no control over that. But what I can do is try my best to control my own behavior and my own reactions to
Yeah, it's
things.
true. That is like the one thing we technically control.
Yeah, and I say that like, with some level of hesitancy because even within our own self, I am very well I understand that we are not complete masters of our
Oh
bodies
yeah.
and ourselves, and so I say that with like, but it's the closest thing we have to control.
Right.
Versus like everyone else, I mean, that's a different, like, that's just complete no control. But at least in the hopes that you can work onto uh, at least gaining a usable amount of control over your behaviors as you know, yeah. At least yeah, you can take responsibility of that. That
Yeah,
of your own actions and stuff. But yeah, interesting, interesting.
very true.
The one thing we didn't go over was the Aquarius thing with Lovely. How's that story like?
um, Actually, it was because of Lovely, but technically, I was the one that joined it first.
Interesting.
But she introduced me to the people that are part of that group,
Mm-hmm.
and we did a lot of like dance covers and stuff together before, but I was never like officially part of like groups or anything. But there was one performance where they needed someone to fill in like forever because someone like because
Forever.
someone because someone quit unexpectedly like right before they had a scheduled performance.
Wow.
So they're like so they thought of me and I was like, "Oh, you can you can learn dances fast. Can you do this, please?" And then I really wanted to do it. But then Lovely came into the picture because then that happened with another member. So then Lovely started doing it with us too. And yeah, I feel like if I didn't meet Lovely, then I wouldn't have met any of the people I feel like I knew now, like in a way. Like I wouldn't have met you.
Right. That is so funny. I'm gonna clip this part and send it to Lovely. That is yeah, that is so cool. Yeah, Lovely is definitely, like how you started. Um, I guess, yeah, like I guess social, very social. Which is really interesting because I kind of, at least because I went through with high school with her,
Mhm.
and she definitely, like, I knew that she like knew a lot of people, but like the way that, but after I did my podcast episode with her, um, I got to really like kind of see like I could kind of see like why she was like who she was.
Mhm.
And it was definitely much of these like, she went out and did these like she had like these summer camps, and she did like, I believe, YMCA, like a lot of these groups of like early on in her life, exposed to like other kids and from different places, and
Mhm.
like, and she was just very comfortable, uh you know and I guess in those camps it kind of cultivated her, um I guess, her confidence in herself.
Yeah.
And I now, looking back, I realize, yeah, like the reason why Lovely can do a lot of the things she does, she does like, the dancing and like the cosplays and like the uh yeah, dancing, cosplays, and now, like, even streaming, she's able to
Mhm.
do all these things, uh because like of this, like, early exposure to like, you're fine like the way that you are. And I think that was the thing, because I looked at my life and I didn't really have that kind of like experience, and so I could definitely see how that kind of like, that experience made her stand out from the crowd, basically.
Mhm.
So fascinating, so fascinating, that the whole connecting part. I mean, this is great. I mean, I love it. How we kind of like led up to this conversation.
Yeah. Like I I felt like I already knew some of like the past guests that you've had on this podcast already. Like even Harley, I know Harley too. So so it's like really cool to see that like people are a lot more connected than they think they are and really make an impact on the world and like people should remember that their impact like means a lot even if they don't necessarily see it in their everyday or feel it like their impact on people really really stays in people's hearts.
I agree 100%. You know, the thing that I go by is that, people might not remember like what you said exactly or like what it is and like anything you said in particular, but what they do remember is like how you made them feel.
Mhm.
It's that you know, and I guess when I try to explain that further, it doesn't really make sense to me. But what's important is like it's like whatever interaction you had with them, it's like you left them you left them something like you were a force like because the world is so the world is like tragic. There's a lot of tragic things that happen. There's a lot of stuff that it's like, every day it's a struggle out there just to like live.
Mhm.
And so that's the background of like every day. And then here you come and then you do something that just brightens up their day. Uh by whatever interaction you had, and that's what they remember, because if they've if everyone is surrounded by all this tragedy around the world and every day, but the souls like you know that are able to instill some good out there in
Mhm.
the world, like people take note of that, and their souls and like and other people's just remember that, like you said, in their heart.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned earlier, like I met a lot of people that really inspired me. I might have not like said it straight up, but I remembered how
Mhm.
each of them made me feel.
Mhm.
And it was that feeling that led up to things like this podcast and led up to like, why I slowly changed to be more like, open and like social with other people.
Mhm.
And so, you never know what kind of change, you never know what kind of effect you'll have on people.
Yeah.
Um and so that's what inspires me every day to kind of like, just try to be the best version of myself, because then it's like, well, okay. So I like to think of it like that, because if I make sure that I'm okay and that my life
Uh-huh.
is set, then I'll be better. And if I'm better, the people that I interact with will be better.
Yeah.
And then from there, the if they're better because of me, like let's say my family or my friends, then
Mhm.
whoever they interact with will be better, and maybe their kids and their
Yeah.
family. And so it all starts with like you, like it all starts like with what you do to take care of yourself, physically and mentally, and your life in general. Um, and so like they say, if you want to change the world, make sure that take care of yourself
Mhm.
first. So.
Well, there's also this one quote that actually makes me think about what you were just saying. Um, like in death, will your death weigh as heavy as Mount Tai, or will it weigh as light as a feather? And meaning like that, like will people like be able to feel your presence in the world, you know? And by serving the people and by really caring about them and really wanting to implement their desires into what you do in your everyday, like that's really going to make your soul weigh as heavy as Mount Tai.
I love that. I love that, because I ask this question sometimes. I actually I asked Marvin this earlier as well. Because one of the ways that helps me gain perspective in life is take a little bit of time to look at your life in reverse.
Mhm.
And so I say like, okay, on your I say on your deathbed, as moments before you die in sometime in the future, um what do you want to be like what do you want to be remembered by?
Mhm.
um you know what are the values that you want people to remember you at? Because it kind of helps me remember that, like, our time here is limited, and we
Yeah.
and that, you know this this is like, and it just makes you remember of, like, what kind of life did you lead.
Yeah.
um you know when you're going through it, we're always, too busy to kind of really consider the full picture, the
Mhm.
the whole story, because we're all busy with the ground level, like what other people think of us, our
Right.
parents and our peers, and even our own, thoughts about, like, what we want for the future. um and so our attention is always split. And so it's really hard to really kind of think about that. But, you know on, some free time you get, where you can kind of, like, okay, yeah, think about my life, like, backwards. He gains that perspective of, like, okay, what is it that's really important to me?
Mhm.
Because it gives you a goal to kind of, like, orient your life towards, like, these are the things
Yeah.
that, like, I want to move in the direction of because of this and this. So that so that you're so that you can, you know die knowing that you lived a life according to your values.
Mhm.
And that's really kind of like, why I like looking at that perspective. And also that changes my current perspective, that you should live a life according to your values.
Yeah,
um
definitely. Like I'm not going to be living to to exploit other people. Like I don't want that. I don't want to hurt other people because I know what it's like to feel like I couldn't do anything. And people should really fight for a future that is so much better than what the current world could even like imagine, you know? Like if everyone's so sad right now, like imagine what the world could be like if everyone was happy.
exactly, exactly, yeah. So, um hey, that's exactly it. When it comes to that kind of stuff. Yeah, so fascinating. So, where um where do you want to be, like, 10 years, like, down the line? Like, where do you see yourself in the, uh in your, in your organizing pursuits, also, like, maybe music pursuits?
Mhm.
Where would you ideally be, in that kind of space?
10 years from now, how old would I be? I feel like for me, I would actually be wanting to in a way be a teacher.
Mhm.
Not necessarily like a teacher in like a K through 12 kind of sense, but like wanting to be able to use the skills that I've learned and actually, if I can, teach people for free. Cuz I think one thing that I actually really love to do is to, I think it's shown, it's teach people a lot of the skills that I know cuz I do truthfully know how to do a lot of things, but I also do think that it would be sayang or a waste to keep that all for myself, you know?
Mhm.
And and I think like a very luscious and healthy society is one where people can express themselves creatively and do something that they love. And if I can do that through like teaching them dance or teaching them music or teaching them how to uh, public speak or anything like that, or even how to facilitate focus groups, or, it's all those different kinds of things. It's like, I think that would definitely make me happy and hopefully make society happy as well.
Very nice.
So maybe some kind of youth program type thing. or some kind of community center where people can come and either like host live performances or host workshops for free. Like, I would actually really love to provide a space for people to be able to do the things that they love and present them to the world. So I think that's what I would want to do and what I would want to have by that age, maybe.
Right. I think it's fascinating. Um, you know, I like to kind of ask that question just because I think it's important to kind of keep something in mind of like what we want uh so that we move in the direction that is desired for ourselves.
Mhm.
Instead of like kind of letting life, well, yeah, sometimes just kind of like, because I hate the idea of like you kind of like, you don't think about it, and then you kind of just go through life, and then 10 years down the road you look back, it's like, how did I like end up here, and you're dissatisfied, because
Mhm.
like you didn't exactly like specify to yourself, okay, what is it that you wanted. Okay, so it doesn't have to be right, it just has to be like what you give reasons as to why is it like in the direction that you want to pursue, and then along the way like adjust it,
Yeah.
and like adjust your aim, adjust whatever it is that you're like uh hoping or reaching for, and according to your values,
Mhm.
because the best way of figuring out if it's something is for you is like by doing it.
Right.
By doing it, you get that you see what it is, and you're able to judge it whether it is for you or not, and if it's not for you, that's fine. Like, you didn't fail, like this wasn't a waste of time, like this was an important part of your journey of figuring out like what is for me.
Mhm.
um and I think that's an efficient way, and a productive way to go about it, so that you're encouraged to try your interests, without being discouraged by like failure, as if it's like
Yeah.
such a negative thing. But it's not, it's a normal part of life, of yeah, it's a normal part of life. And when you think about it, like, you know the only reason why like society has been able to come this far wasn't just because of like, well, like, so successes like all came from like failures, like we all learned from people um before us, and
Mhm.
there's a long history of failures that um that led up to a success.
Mhm.
And ultimately I feel like that's the story of everyone. I think that everyone, um you're not going to get it right the first time, like no one
Yeah.
will get it right. And the best that you can do is to aim at something, and then do everything in your power to go there, and then along the way reevaluate as often as you can, like, is this something
Yeah,
for me?
reassess.
Yeah. And you know you do that as many times as you want, you start to figure out like who you are by the adjustments
Mhm.
that you make. And yeah, I like that approach when it comes to like trying to figure out what it is you want to do. Fascinating day. Oh, fascinating. We're reaching 2 hours.
We are. This has lasted a bit longer than we expected.
I know. There's so much. There's so much. I mean, there's so much to talk about. I think I mean, I only did touch up on the surface level of these topics. I love diving deeper into like, the nuances of every experience a little bit, because yeah, nothing is very straightforward that I find. Everything that we go to, it's like
Yeah.
we have an idea, but I find it like it hardly ever turns out the way we expected, and we learn along the way.
Yeah. I learned a lot actually through this conversation. I didn't know that that's what I wanted to do in 10 years, but then I realized, oh, wait, yeah, I do want to provide like a space for people to feel like they can grow without judgment, and like that's what this current society is not providing for people. So
Definitely. Well, yeah, that's super, cool that you were able to do that on here. And the cool thing is like, um being able to identify that as like something you want to do, and like we just said, like it's all about trial and error. You
mhm.
identify it for these various reasons. You go out there and you see like, is this for me? And like, and if it's for you, that's great, like amazing. If it's not for you, there's, you know then it's just like, it's part of the process. It's part of the process of like figuring out like, why didn't it work out for me? And and you go from there. You go from there, um and that's, just life. Like, I mean, if anything, life has taught us life is not simple, and life is very,
Mhm.
very complex, and in turn that means that you're very complex. And we mentioned this before, like we think we're masters of ourselves, but we're not, and we have to learn like, we have to really like learn like how we work, so that we can give ourselves the best shot of like controlling ourselves ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really gotta just be patient with ourselves, but
Oh
also with
yeah.
the people around us.
Oh yeah.
But I think especially like of ourselves.
Oh yeah. We are always our biggest critics, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's the hardest thing because we don't have anyone to really check our thoughts. It's only
Just
ourselves,
us.
and so there's a lot of things that go, you know, uh, unchecked, and un you know because we tend to believe our mind, and but I find that our
Our
mind,
mind is not always right.
no, no, it's not, and that's an interesting lesson to kind of learn, that it's like, that voice in your head that is always kind of criticizing you. It it uh, it has it often, um uh um uses false logic, um
Mhm.
and that's what ultimately tricks you into believing it. And again, like, trying to parse through what is truth and what is not truth in your own mind. I mean, like you were talking about earlier, like, your education and, like, the news and stuff like that, parsing through the bias,
Uh-huh.
and how hard that is. But doing it in your own mind is also, I mean, that happens constantly. I mean, that's just something
Yeah,
else.
it's like the reality, like everything is biased in this world, like, but it's really like identifying who it's biased toward. Is it biased toward wanting to oppress people even further, or is it biased toward wanting life to change for the better?
Right, right. And also just trying to find some sort of like objective, uh
Reality.
yeah, some sort of objective reality that you can at least like kind of like ground it in, like some sort of
Mhm.
data, some sort of evidence that can kind of like,
Not just an ideal, but in reality. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And of course, like, I mean, like I mentioned, like evidence and data, it's great to have, but it's also like you said, even that. Oh, well, okay, so let's say the most ideal situation where it's like the data was like collected in like an unbiased way, and so we have evidence, and then also how people use evidence and how they frame evidence can also be like another level
Biased, yeah.
of and so it's just like having the critical, thinking abilities to kind of like, parse through this, and really kind of uh be able to get some sort of objective through all that, subjective bias, and then also like your own messaging, the way that you present that your findings also introduces like a level of bias in there. So it's like you got to be careful with that too. It's like, oh man, it's such a it's yeah, it's pretty crazy when you think about it, but it's trying to relay uh educational content that, is as objective as possible in the service of like helping people improve their
Mhm.
lives. I mean, I consider that like a noble pursuit. One where it's like extremely difficult. There's gonna be, a lot of obstacles in your way, but you know through your hard effort and through your best efforts comes you know all the benefits of a person striving for that, which is like the best chance at helping people, increase whatever condition that isn't working for them,
Mm-hmm.
and just, yeah, it creates like the best conditions for these to happen. And it's a noble pursuit because of how you'll never get it 100%, but you do your best, then you'll give it the best shot that it can have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Oh man, psychology always gets me. I love it. It's great to see like I was a oh my god.
Sociology.
Sociologist,
Yeah.
there we go. Kind of take, and because I've always been interested a little bit, I've been more particularly interested in the individual mind and the individual psychology, but definitely like the societal,
Impact of the individual mind.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely I'm interested in, well, so it's that, it's been interesting to kind of crash minds with that aspect in you.
Mm-hmm.
So very interesting. So very interesting. Ah, yeah, that definitely way over time, but it's just because there's so much to talk about. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we talked about the community organizing. We talked about your EV-133, and your experience there. We talked about a little bit about anime and idol anime.
This is like a whole novel.
No, it's not even close. I always say like I get maybe 0.1% of the individual in these hour and 30 minutes. Um and I'll never be anywhere close to really, you know getting like a full picture, but at least it's, I would also consider that like a noble pursuit. It's like I'll never get there like 100%, but you give it my best shot to kind of like, with the time that I have, to kind of get to know the person and get their story, because I'm personally interested, but also because I think that it benefits the person to kind of have a space to kind of tell their story, figure out their
Yeah.
story, because I always think that's such an important part of mental health, like I mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
having that story down so that during those really tough moments, you have something to kind of hold yourself together, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In ways you're kind of thinking like a community organizer too.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. It's been interesting. All this stuff about the podcast and the guests and stuff like that. It's always grounded in a sense of like, community. At least like I see it in them, like the people that they affect and they take care of. I think with every guest, there's a sense of community, very
Mm-hmm.
much like
Definitely.
there, and it's fascinating to kind of uh, see that process and that journey of themselves. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
everyone's always a part of something a little bigger than themselves, right? So why not give back?
Definitely. Definitely. Oh man. Yeah. I absolutely love this conversation. You
Thanks, I'm
know,
having a good time too.
yeah. Let me see. I always tell my guests that I want to follow up podcast episode, to kind of see like, because we talk about the future a little bit, and so,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, like always interested to see like what they've done in the 5 year. Well, I say 5 years. I have no idea when the next podcast. I always say this. I haven't scheduled any like follow ups yet. It's an indeterminate time, but I just know that I want to speak to everyone again at some point in time, because it's
Season 2 of the Gabriel Podcast.
I know that would be fantastic. That would be I would think a very long, long season, but I definitely want to make it work somehow. Because I mean, now I'm personally invested in every single one of your guys' stories, and it's almost like it's almost like you said, kind of like we're ending season 1, and it's the cliffhanger. It's
Yeah.
and we're currently building that next season as we go, and I definitely want to see the lives that you guys lead and support you guys, because hey, you guys are all amazing, so amazing.
Excited for what's next with the Gabriel Podcast.
Yes, very much so. How can the people find you, Jay, on the social medias?
Yeah, so you can follow me at j.jimxn, but you can also follow me at uh Kiro_P. And that's where I really post a lot of like my um artistic stuff and singing, just to kind of uh keep like the personal and also the artist stuff, just have it a space for its own. But you can also follow a lot of my socials, and they are going to be on the bios of those accounts. So of all the other organizations I'm a part of, and my band, and then also my dance group and everything like that. So they're all there. Um, and if you're interested in wanting to change the world for the better, definitely hit me up and we can try to make something cool together.
There you guys go. I'll make sure to link all the links that I can find down in the description below. When this comes out. But yeah, Jay, it was as amazing, no, even more amazing of a
Oh my
conversation
gosh.
that I had originally had thought up when I was contemplating, or when I first invited you to the podcast.
Thank you. I had a good time.
Yeah, like I learned so much. All the the close knit family of Long Beach, apparently.
Yeah, Long Beach is a lot bigger than we think it is.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to see, um, to hear your story, and everything that led up to where you're at now. You know, it's I
Thank you.
fascinating, fascinating.
And you're now part of it too.
Yeah, no, that's super cool. That I was given this opportunity to kind of to witness and listen to the story of Jay. That's awesome. I can't wait to see more from you. Where this life leads.
And for you as well.
All right. Thank you very much, Jay. I guess we'll wrap it up here. Any final thoughts before we end it?
um, Not really. Just let me know when your podcast continues to get more episodes. I really love learning about people who are in Long Beach here. So I feel like your podcast can also be like the Long Beach resident podcast in a way.
Yeah, no, I love the yeah, the way that I pick my people. It's not any particular thing. It's really just it's such a hard selection process as well. But it's mostly anybody that comes across my life, and I just find really interesting.
Hmm.
And it just so happened, a lot of them lived here in Long Beach as my
Yeah.
friends. So it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, same here. Thank you again.
No problem at all, Jay. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I am looking forward to our next conversation together. Um, but yeah. All right, guys, that will end the 18th episode of the Gabriel Podcast. That was with Jay today, and I fully enjoyed it, and I hope you guys fully enjoyed it as well. She's an amazing individual, and like I previously, I absolutely can't wait till to see what she can do out there, and the good that she can produce. All right, thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Bye.